Clare FM's In the Garden with Clonroad Garden Centre, Clonroad Business Park, in the heart of Ennis. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, our friendly staff are here to help your garden grow. Open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday.
And joining us once again for In the Garden is Judy Beck from the Clonroad Garden Centre. Judy, good morning to you.
Hi, Alan. Good morning. I'm a little bit hoarse this morning, so I hope you can bear with me.
That is quite all right. The voice sounding okay in the early stages, Judy, so long may that continue. So any gardening questions, 2086 1800 964. Before we get to those, though, you're going to take us through this week's chat, which is on growing carrots, Judy. Tell us more.
Yeah, carrots is a really popular vegetable to grow, and I think the reason that people like to grow carrots is because you really get a much better flavour from the shop-bought carrots. And also you can get a much wider variety of different types of carrots than what you can buy in the supermarket. So lots of people actually try to grow carrots, but some people have a few difficulties with growing them. So I thought maybe we go through that and maybe some of the common problems that people come across when they try to grow them. And did you know, like, even with carrots, you can grow your own purple carrots, which was the original colour of the carrot, was a purple carrot. And of course, that's actually filled with extra nutrients. So a little bit more interesting to put on your dinner table than the regular orange carrot.
Wow, okay, a purple carrot. I don't I don't think I've ever seen one of those.
I know, and white carrots as well. That's another one that you can grow. And you wouldn't know this unless you were growing your own, because they're really not generally available on the supermarket shelves. But quite an easy one. And of course, carrots is the one thing that most of us actually started eating as babies. One of our first foods, mashed carrots, is a very popular baby food. So we've been eating them forever. But as I say, once you grow your own, and it's not about the money, because carrots probably aren't the most expensive vegetable to buy in the supermarket. So it's not about saving money, really. It's more about the flavour and probably the pride as well about putting your own carrots on the table for your family. So if you haven't tried it before, would definitely recommend giving it a go this year. And I guarantee if you just take a few steps, you will have success in producing your own carrots.
Yeah, talking there about, it's one of the first, I suppose, vegetables we'll all have eaten. I introduced them early on, Judy, and absolutely loved them. I can remember eating them raw like Bugs Bunny when I was a kid as well. I suppose the benefits, you hear it's better for your eyesight and all that kind of stuff. And vegetables are just good for you. But
yes.
I suppose, what are the other reasons why you're recommending people grow carrots? Is it that they're quite easy to grow, easy to maintain as well? Or
Well, it is for the flavour. And as you were saying there about the eyesight, you know how they say, when you're a kid, eat your carrots, you'll be able to see in the dark. And that's not actually true. It is an old wives' tale. Now, it is based a little bit on science, because carrots are full of beta-carotene, which converts to vitamin A, which is really good for your eyes. So it won't help you see in the dark, but it is really good for your eye health. So another good reason for growing carrots, along with the flavour and along with the pride, of course, of being able to produce them and put them on the table. So if you are thinking about growing carrots, I suppose you need to think about what kind of soil you have. And that's always the most important thing when you're growing vegetables. If you have a very heavy soil, when you think a carrot, it is a root, and it needs to go down through the soil. And if you have very heavy soil, it's going to have difficulty protruding down through it. So might be a good idea to lighten out your soil a little bit, and you can do that with adding a little bit of sand, seaweed and homegrown compost. So to dig up your soil, to lighten it, and very important that the top layer is a very fine tilth. And that means that you've broken up the soil. So when you put these very tiny seeds down onto the soil, they have a chance to germinate. Because if you've real clumpy, heavy soil, these tiny, tiny little seeds are really going to struggle to germinate. And Also, with carrots, you have to remember it doesn't like a really rich, heavy, manured soil. And what happens, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but have you ever seen a carrot that's gone into almost fingers? So it's
Yeah.
gone into a really wonky shape. And there's two reasons for that. One is that your soil is too heavy, and another one is that your soil is too heavy in fertilizer. So they might look really interesting, but it's probably not going to produce that lovely long root that we're looking for when we're growing carrots.
Okay, but even though they might look a bit odd or not like the conventional carrot, Judy, I'm sure they're as tasty as the regular looking ones.
Absolutely, and don't throw them out. You can absolutely eat them. And there are varieties actually that are really short. There's one I think is called short and sweet. And this is also really good for growing in containers. So if you want to try growing carrots in a pot, in a window box, absolutely possible. But if it's not very deep, you can get this variety called short and sweet. And it's not a really long taproot. So very possible to grow carrots in containers, and sometimes a bit easier because you can control the soil or compost that's going into that container, and you can make it much lighter than what your garden soil might be. So definitely worth giving a go. And carrots don't take up a huge amount of room, actually. They don't grow into these big, wide cabbage plants. You know, they take up quite a small amount of room, and they give you a really good harvest. So a good economical use of your garden.
Very good. And yeah, they don't take up much space. You can grow them in containers, but the containers themselves, Judy, I'd imagine, do they have to have quite a bit of depth to them?
Well, that's the thing, you see. You can grow them in deep containers to grow the long carrots, but if you don't have deep containers, you can grow a variety called short and sweet, which is a much shorter variety, but same taste, you know, really nice variety, and quite a nice one actually to grow if you want to show the kids how, you know, this is how you grow carrots. But you want to get some kind of a harvest without having to give them a really deep container, which you might not have. You know, just don't go spending loads of money on buying new containers to grow them. Just use what you have around the place, as long as it's got drainage holes. You must have, and for most plants, you must have holes in the bottom of the pot so the extra water can drain off and your plants don't die or drown in you know, of course, when we get a heavy rain shower, all the water will gather in a container that doesn't have drainage holes. So really important. Sometimes people bring containers into us and they want us to plant them up with generally flowers, but you don't have drainage holes in this, and we'll drill the holes in because you know, you put a container outside the front door and next thing you get a deluge of rain and the plants just totally drown. Total waste of time. So really important tip for people. If you're growing anything, make sure your container has plenty of drainage.
Okay, some good tips there. And maybe before we move on to jobs for the week and listeners' questions, and indeed another reminder, if you want to send in a gardening question, maybe you have a gardening conundrum that you need solving, send in your question for Judy to 086 1800 964. I guess like any fruit or veg or plants, Judy, carrots are not the exception in terms of potential threats. So what should people watch out for in relation to carrots if and when they're growing them?
So the main problem, and plenty of people now who already grow carrots will know this is an issue, and that's called the carrot fly. And what the carrot fly does, it's looking for those carrots you have sowed, and it will lay its eggs right beside your carrots. And when those eggs hatch into larvae, they tunnel into your carrots and devastate the crop, and you can't eat them. So there's a few ways that you can avoid this nasty little carrot fly. One is you can get seeds that are resistant to carrot fly. So that's definitely a big help for people. The other is you can use a fleece to throw over your crop, really fine fleece that the carrot fly can't get through, and that will protect your crop. The other thing is the carrot fly can only grow about 1.5 or 50 centimetres high off the ground. So you can either grow it in a raised bed, or you can put a protective barrier around your bed, which the carrot fly can't fly over. And some people do that. And the last tip I would have is don't thin out your carrots. So if you put down your seed and you put it down really thickly and you have to thin them out because there's just too many have germinated and you need to pull some out, if you can smell the carrot, and when you thin them out, you get a really strong smell of carrot, off those tiny little seedlings. If you can smell it, the carrot fly can smell it from up to a mile away. So if you can, sow really thinly with your seed, so the carrot fly doesn't get that smell of carrots.
Wow.
So definitely some things you can take into account, and if you do that, then you will have good success. I definitely recommend people give it a go.
Okay, brilliant. Some fantastic advice and tips there. Before we get on to the listeners' questions, and plenty of them here, and you'll be delighted to know some carrot-related ones. What jobs for the week are you recommending people take care of if they can?
Well, there's so many jobs now that we're coming into spring, but a few that people might want to consider doing. When your snowdrops start to go off flower now and they go back just to green leaves, now is the time to dig them up and move them. So if you have too many snowdrops in one place and you want to spread them around your garden, dig up a clump and replant it into another place. And as soon as they go off flower, that's the time to do it. Now, they may still be flowering, so leave them until they've finished flowering and enjoy the flowers, and then move them around your garden to increase the number of snowdrops, because snowdrop bulbs are actually quite expensive. So if you can increase your own supply, it's a good way to save a bit of money. Other things you can do is transplanting shrubs. So again, a good time to transplant any deciduous shrubs. Now they're really dormant. January, February is when plants are in their most dormant stage and the best time for success. So if you have a deciduous shrub, deciduous means that it loses its leaves in the winter. So now is the time to dig it up and transplant it into a better area of the garden. Maybe you've got one area of the garden's got really busy and everything's squashed together. You need to make a bit of room. So now would be the time to move your deciduous shrub. Early potatoes. You can buy your early potatoes now, put them on the windowsill, start shooting them, which means start sprouting them. So little sprouts come up, and now is the perfect time to start doing that to get them ready for sowing outside from St. Patrick's Day onwards. And you might even consider buying tomato seeds and chili pepper seeds, because you can start sowing your tomatoes and chili peppers on your windowsill.
Okay, some brilliant tips there and jobs for the week, if you can tackle them. Let's move on to the listeners' questions. It's 086 1800 964 should you have a gardening question for Judy. I did mention that there are some carrot-related ones, which I'm sure you're pleased with. Clearly some people already ahead of the game on this one. One here says, I grow carrots in containers because my soil is heavy clay. What depth and pot size actually works best, and are there varieties you'd recommend for pots?
So you can grow really any variety in a pot, but the variety you grow depends on the depth of the pot. So if you have a pot 12 inches or deeper, you can grow the long taproot ones. But if say you only have a pot or window box with maybe 6 inches depth, then you do need to buy one of the shorter varieties, such as short and sweet, which is it'll grow much shorter, or even a little round carrot. And they would be much more suitable. And you can just use regular compost. A bag of regular compost is perfect for growing your compost. If you want to add a fertiliser to your carrots, a seaweed feed, liquid seaweed feed, is really good for giving it extra nutrients. But go easy on the really heavy, high nitrogen feeds, which carrots don't need.
Okay, one here from a listener who's growing carrots, and they're close to getting it right. They're half right. They say, last year my carrots were crunchy, but they were pretty bland, and they're wondering, is that down to the watering, the feeding, or the variety itself?
So I would say it's probably one of two things. One could be the variety. So maybe try a different variety this year. But the other reason could be the feed that you're giving it. So vegetables take on a taste of the feed. Like in the old days, we used to use a thing called Jay's fluid to clean the soil, which is like a total no-no nowadays because it's just full of chemicals. But actually the things that you grew from the soil that was washed with Jay's fluid would have kind of a slightly disinfectant flavour when you ate it. So it's definitely recommended not to use Jay's fluid this year, but it just does prove the point that what you feed your vegetables comes out in the taste. So it's definitely worth looking at what fertiliser you're using, and possibly use an organic fertiliser, or as I was saying, a seaweed feed. and very heavily diluted seaweed. So you don't want to taste the seaweed off your carrots either. But it really gives lots of micronutrients to your veg crop. So I would say maybe change up the variety of carrot and also change the fertilizer that you're using.
Okay, some great advice there. Question from Keen Gardner, Kay in Currafin and Dedicated Morning Focus listener. Good morning to you, Kay. Says, good morning, Alan and Judy. Kay is wondering, when do I trim my weeping willow and what is the best thing to feed and treat it? And when is the best time to plant rose bushes?
Hi, Kay. Well, Kay is a great gardener and we know her well from the garden centre. So for your weeping willow, now would be a good time to trim your weeping willow. It's nice and dormant, it's lost its leaves, and I have a weeping tree myself that I need to look at trimming now in this dormant season. So you can go ahead and trim your weeping willow now. And the other question, what was that about roses?
Rose bushes. Kay is asking, when is the best time to plant rose bushes?
Well, you can really plant rose bushes at any time of the year, but it would be good to get them into the ground in the spring, which means that they get a bit of a head start before the summer flowering. They get their roots down, they get established, and you'll have a good chance of getting some good flowers this year if you plant them from now on. So I know in our garden centre we just got 2 huge delivery of rose bushes. So if Kay's looking for a particular variety or a particular colour, she'll get the best variety at the moment, or the best options for different colours and different types of roses for the next month or two. It would be a really good time to pick them. Of course, you don't have to plant them straight away when you buy them. You can keep them in those containers until you're ready to plant them out. Or, you know, if her garden's not ready for them, at least she'll have the variety she wants and she can plant them out whenever suits her.
Okay, there you go, Kay. Thanks for your question. Always great to hear from you. Patricia's question for you this morning on 086 1800 964, Judy, is in relation to leather jackets. She asks, how can you get rid of leather jackets, which are, of course, the larvae of crane flies, but why are they such a concern, Judy?
Well, leather jackets are usually appear in soil that has been converted from uncultivated ground. So, for example, if you have a patch of land that has never really been used for anything, often agricultural land, and now you want to grow vegetables on it, for some reason, and I don't know the reason why, but they seem to keep a lot of the larvae from the crane fly. It seems to come from that uncultivated ground, so it's always the worst in the first year. But they can do quite a lot of damage to your crops. Now, the most environmentally friendly way of getting rid of leather jackets is using. You can get this like it's a natural bacteria that you spray on the soil, and what they do is they actually go in and they eat the leather jackets, these tiny little bacteria. They're like a parasite, and that's the most environmentally friendly way of getting rid of leather jackets. The other way would be maybe to just put in something like potatoes that leather jackets wouldn't really eat, to kind of clean the ground for the first year, and then next year you could change over to a different crop. But the good news is it's definitely the worst in the first year. Probably won't be totally gone by the second year, but now, I'm not saying they don't appear in soil that has been cultivated before, but for sure they're much worse in soil that was uncultivated before.
Okay, question here from a listener, Judy, who's wondering, when do cabbage plants come into stock?
Yeah, cabbage plants, the most popular by far of all the plants that we sell during the year. We sell tons and tons of cabbage plants. York cabbage, Graham cabbage, Savoy cabbage. Lots of people come in to buy them. And the good news is that they will be in the next 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on the weather. So if the nurseries have them, if the weather stays reasonably mild, they will keep growing pretty well, and they'll be ready in our garden centre anyway in about 10 days to 2 weeks for sale.
Okay, I'd say that listener is going to be crossing off red X's on each day ahead of those coming back into stock. Jerry's been in touch to say, good morning, Judy and Alan. I'm using a propagator to propagate flower seeds for the summer season. Right. I'm using a good quality seed compost, a propagator, and following the instructions on the seed packets. My question is, why do some seeds germinate and other seeds in the same packet not germinate, even though the sowing conditions are exactly the same for all the seeds, same temperature, same compost, etc., wonders Jerry.
So I would check the expiry date on the back of the packet to if they've been sitting maybe in your seed box for a couple of years. The older the seeds get as the years go on, the less of them germinate. So even though seeds can last for a number of years, they become less and less viable. So say, for example, seeds that were packed this year, you might get 90% germination. But the following year, you might only get 80% or 75%, depending on the seed. And it keeps decreasing year by year. So first thing to do would be to check the back of the packet. Also, of course, seeds, they're a natural, they're something that nature provides. So you can never be 100% guaranteed that every single one of them is going to germinate. So that's why you generally get, not in all seed packets, but you often get quite a lot of seeds because they do take into account that a certain amount of them aren't going to germinate. But I would check the expiry date. First thing to do.
Good tip on that one. And last question this morning says, Alan, can you ask Judy about rose cutting? There are leaves growing on the cutting. Can I transfer them out?
So you can't, if they're budding, I suppose it depends on what the roots are. So you said that she's done a rose cutting and there's leaves growing, but I wonder if the root is growing. That's the important thing.
Okay, yeah, so, no, she just doesn't specify. That just says there are leaves growing on the cutting. When can I transfer them out?
And I wonder if she's growing them in soil or in water. If you're growing them in water, it's very easy to see if the root has grown. But if you're growing them in soil, the only way really to tell is by taking it out of the pot or looking at the bottom of the pot where the holes are and to see if any roots are coming out of the holes. It's not about the leaves growing, it's about the roots. So you need to have a decent root in order to be able to transfer it out. And I would say just wait till the soil warms up a little bit. It's a little bit early for a young rose cutting to go out. So give it another couple of months, I would say, before putting it out to give it the best chance.
Okay, brilliant stuff. We do have to leave it there with Judy. Well played as ever. We'd never expect anything less from you. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you ever have a question again for Judy for In the Garden, be it any day of the week, we'll compile them for the next time she's on. It's 086 1800 964. But for the moment, from the Clonroad Garden Centre, Judy Beck, thanks as ever for being with us on Morning Focus.
Thanks, Alan. Take care.